Hi, today we're going to learn how to play Cardfight Vanguard, the new collectible card game from Bushiroad, and available in the US through heartofthecards.com. This is the Blaster Blade trial deck versus the Dragonic Overlord trial deck. In Cardfight Vanguard, players appear as spirits on the planet Kreg, a world similar to Earth. They may call the creatures that live on that planet, known as units, to fight for them, and ride, possessing the physical form of those creatures themselves as their vanguard. You win by dealing 6 damage to your opponent. You lose if you run out of cards in your deck. This is a unit. It has a name, clan, and race. This tells you whether it is a trigger unit, yellow, or a normal unit. Here is the power of the unit. This is the grade of the unit. This is the critical number. This is the shield number. This is the card text, which will show any continuous, auto, and or startup abilities. Continuous effects are always active. Auto occur when their conditions are met, and startup may be activated during your own main phase. Here is where a trigger icon will appear if it is a trigger unit. Your deck is made of 50 cards. If you put cards with the same name in your deck, you may not have more than 4 of any one name. Each deck has 16 trigger units, and no more than 4 of those triggers can be heal triggers. This is the playing field. The Vanguard Circle is where your Vanguard is placed. These 5 circles are the Rearguard Circles, where you call your allies to fight alongside you. These 3 circles, the Vanguard and the 2 Rearguard Circles, are the front row, and these are the back row. Each of these is a column. This is the Guardian Circle, where units are moved to intercept, and where Guardian units are played to help defend. This is where your deck goes, this is your drop zone, this is your damage zone, and this is the trigger zone, where triggers are revealed and applied. Let's play a sample game. Each player chooses one grade 0 unit from their deck and places it face down in their Vanguard Circle. Then they play rock, paper, scissors. The winner of rock, paper, scissors goes first. We'll refer to them as player 1. Both players shuffle their decks and draw 5 cards to their hand. Player 1 chooses any number of those cards, puts them on top of their deck, shuffles, and then draws 1 card at a time until they are back up to 5 cards. Player 2 does the same. Now both players flip up their starting Vanguard unit into the stand, vertical position, and begin play. Player 1 goes first. They become the active player, stand their rested units, of which there are none right now, and then draw 1 card. They then enter the ride phase. At this point, any auto abilities on cards that activate at the beginning of the ride phase activate. If they want, they can ride. To ride means to select a unit in your hand that is equal to or 1 grade higher than your Vanguard and play it on top of your Vanguard. The cards beneath your Vanguard are referred to as your soul. They are in no particular order, and when a number of cards is added to or taken from the soul, they may be added or removed in any order, and may be freely looked at or rearranged. Player 1 rides Wingle onto Stardust Trumpeter. When they ride a unit, any effects that happen when that unit is rode or played to a Vanguard Circle activate. After choosing whether or not to ride, they begin their main phase. At this point, any auto abilities on cards that activate at the beginning of the main phase activate. During the main phase, you can call rearguards, move rearguards, and activate startup abilities. To call a rearguard, you play a unit from your hand to one of your rearguard circles. The grade of this unit must be equal to or less than the grade of your Vanguard. If you call a unit to a circle where another unit already is, the unit that's already there is retired, which means it is removed to your drop zone. Player 1 calls Knight of Rose Morgana to the rearguard circle behind their Vanguard. After this unit is called, any effects that activate when a unit is called to rearguard circle activate. Rearguards may move from their own rearguard circle to other rearguard circles in the same column. If there is a rearguard where they're moving to, that rearguard is moved to where that first unit came from. They swap places. You cannot move a rearguard side to side, and you cannot move a rearguard to the Vanguard Circle. That means the rearguard most recently played cannot move. After a player is done activating startup abilities, moving, and calling rearguards, they move to their attack phase. However, the very first turn of the game, the first player's first turn, the player is not allowed to attack. Therefore, the player moves immediately to the end phase, where bonuses that last until the end of the turn are removed. Please note that there is no hand limit in Cardfight Vanguard, so there's no discarding down to the hand limit at the end of the turn. Player 2 now takes their turn. They draw, ride Demonic Dragon Madonna Joka, and call Embodiment of Armor Bar and Dragon Monk Gojo as rearguards. They also call Dragon Dancer Monica behind their Vanguard as a rearguard. They choose not to call any more rearguards and enter their attack phase. During the attack phase, you may choose to perform one or more battles. To battle, choose a non-rested front row unit, Vanguard or rearguard, of yours that will attack. This is the attacking unit, and choose one of your opponent's front row units, Vanguard or rearguard, to get attacked, the defending unit. At this point, any auto effect that activates when a unit attacks is performed. Once you've done that, you rest the attacking unit, which is to turn it sideways. At this point, if the unit behind the attacking unit has the boost ability, which is an up arrow below the grade number, commonly found on grade 1 and 0 units, you may rest that unit as well, and add the back row unit's power to the front row unit for the duration of the battle. Player 2 declares an attack from Joka to Wingle, rests Joka, and boosts with Monica for a total of 11,000 power. At this point, the opponent may choose to guard. To guard, they call units from their hand that have a shield number to their Guardian Circle. They may call as many units as they want, one at a time, or none at all. They may not call a unit with a grade that is higher than their Vanguard. They place that unit sideways in their Guardian Circle. At this point, any auto effect that activates when a unit guards is performed. They then subtract the called unit's shield from the attacking unit's power for the duration of the battle. Player 1 chooses to guard with Flogel. Flogel has a shield of 10k, so this lowers the attacking power to 1k. Once they are done calling units, if these units attack as Vanguard, then the active player performs a drive check. That means they take the top card of their deck and place it into the trigger zone face up. If there is a trigger on it, and the player who revealed the trigger has that clan on one of their in-play rear guards or Vanguard, they activate that trigger's effect, add the power that the trigger gives to one of their units until the end of the turn, then move that card from the trigger zone to their hand. Note that the trigger moving from the trigger zone to their hand does not count as drawing that card, and that the trigger moves to their hand regardless of whether or not there is a trigger on that card. There are 4 types of triggers: critical, stand, draw, and heal. Their effects will be shown in this game. Player 2 drive checks and reveals Demonic Dragon Berserker Yaksha, which has a yellow plus 5,000 critical trigger. They add the plus 5,000 to their Vanguard, and the critical effects to that Vanguard as well, which adds plus 1 to the unit's critical. Note that they are not required to add both effects to the same unit, and they do not have to add either effect to the unit who attacked. Now we compare the power of the units. If the attacking unit's power is greater to or equal to the defending unit's power, the attacking unit hits the defending unit. If not, they are not hit, and the attack ends. Note that a failed attack does not have any negative effects to the attacking player. They don't take damage or lose units just because they didn't hit. Here we see that the attacking power of 6k is equal to the defending power of 6k, so a hit occurs. If the defending unit is a Vanguard, at this point the Vanguard takes damage equal to the critical number of the attacking unit. To do this, the player controlling the hit Vanguard performs a damage check for each point of damage. A damage check is where you move the top card of their deck face up to the trigger zone. Activate any trigger effects that appear, again if that unit's clan is on one of their in-play rear guards or Vanguard. Then move that card face up to their damage zone. If they get 6 cards in their damage zone, they lose the game. Since player 2 has 2 critical on their attacking unit, player 1 will perform 2 damage checks. The first one does not have a trigger, so is moved from the damage zone without any additional effects. The same for the second one. At the end of the attack, any effects that take place when a unit is hit are applied. Then all guardians and hit rear guards are moved to the respective drop zones. At this point, any effects that take place when those units are moved to the drop zone are applied. In the case of multiple effects, all of the active players' effects are activated in any order they choose, and then all of the non-active players' effects in any order that they choose. Player 2 does an attack from bar to player 1's Vanguard. Player 1 chooses not to guard and takes a damage. Player 2 then declares an attack from Gojo to the Vanguard. Player 1 decides not to guard and takes damage. Note that this damage trigger has a draw trigger on it. The plus 5,000 is added to the Vanguard, and then the draw trigger forces the player to draw one card. It's then moved to the damage zone. Note that the plus 5,000 came after the battle, so it has no effect on it. Since player 2 has no more units that can attack, they declare the end of their turn. All bonuses from triggers wear off. Player 1 stands and draws. They ride Blaster Blade. Blaster Blade says, among other things, that if it is played to the Vanguard Circle, the player may counterblast 2 to retire a unit. To counterblast, you choose face-up damage equal to your counterblast cost and turn them face down. Player 1 chooses to do so, counterblasts, and retires player 2's Monica. There are 2 other special types of payments in Cardfight Vanguard, Soul Charge and Soul Blast. For each Soul Charge, you take 1 card from the top of your deck and put it face up into your soul. For each Soul Blast, you choose 1 card in your soul and move it to the drop zone. These type of payments are not used in this example game. They then play Knight of Silent Skeleton to a Rearguard Circle. They then call Starlight Unicorn to a Rearguard Circle. This card has an auto effect. When it is put into play, you may give plus 2,000 to one other Royal Paladin clan unit. They choose to give it to Gallatin. They then call Little Sage Marin to a Rearguard Circle. They then attack with their Vanguard, targeting Bar. They rest Blaster Blade and boost with Morgana, resting her as well. The total attack power is 15k. Player 2 guards with Raksha, whose 10k shield lowers the attack to 5k. Since this is the Vanguard, player 1 drive checks and reveals Yggdrasil Maiden Elaine with a plus 5,000 heal trigger. They apply the plus 5,000 to their Vanguard and heal a face-down damage. Heal triggers heal either a face-up or face-down damage of the player's choice, moving it to the drop zone. This only activates if the player healing does not have less damage than their opponent. If they have equal to or more damage, they are allowed to heal. The trigger is then moved to hand. Blaster Blade's attack power is now 10k, which is more than enough to hit Bar. Bar is hit, and then at the end of the attack, all Guardians and hit Rearguards are moved to the drop zone. Marin then attacks Joka. Player 2 does not guard, and their Vanguard is hit. They take 1 damage. Player 1 then attacks with Gallatin to their Vanguard, boosted by Starlight Unicorn, for 16,000. 18,000. Due to Unicorn's plus 2,000. Player 2 decides not to guard and takes 1 damage. It's a heal trigger. They give the plus 5,000 to their Vanguard, but the heal trigger itself does not go off, as they have 1 damage to their opponent's 3. At this point, the trigger is then moved to damage, and player 1 ends their turn. Player 2 stands and draws. They ride Berserk Dragon. When Berserk Dragon is played to a Vanguard or Rearguard Circle, the player may counterblast 2 to retire opponent's grade 2 or lower Rearguard. Player 2 chooses to do so, counterblasting 2, and retiring Morgan. Player 2 moves Gojo to the back row and calls Wyvern Strike Tejas in front of Gojo. Tejas has a continuous effect, which states that it may attack an opponent's back row unit in the same column as itself. This does not keep it from attacking units in the front row, it merely adds to its available targets. Player 2 also calls Dragon Knight Nehalem. Nehalem attacks Blaster Blade, 10k to 9k. No guard, so Blaster Blade takes 1 damage. Tejas chooses to attack Starlight Unicorn, boosted by Gojo. Player 1 decides not to guard, and so Starlight Unicorn is retired.